Hey everyone, Dr. Lisa Faust here, and I have another Becoming a Pharmacy Badass episode for you. This one's a little bit about saving time, and it's think about it a little bit different. I talk about time management and managing your time. We all have heard the saying, like, and spend money to make money. I believe that the same is true for time, that if you spend time and you spend it wisely, you can actually make time back. And my guest today is Greg. He's the founder and CEO of RXinsider. And you're probably thinking like, okay, RXinsider, that's tickling my brain a little bit. What are you talking about, Lisa? So we're going to dive into how leveraging a great industry resource like RXinsider can actually help you save time in your pharmacy and really help you just, for all intents and purposes, speed up the success of your pharmacy, because they've done a lot of the hard work for you in terms of finding out solutions that you need for your pharmacy. So before we dive into how I think you can earn some time back, I want to give opportunity to Greg to tell a little bit about RXinsider, where it came from, and because a lot of you have probably touched this magazine either digitally or physically, but you don't really know the man behind there. So Greg, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. And just tell our listeners and watchers a little bit about your history. Like, where did this all come from, and why RXinsider?
Well, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate the opportunity here. So a little bit about me and RXinsider. I'm a pharmacist. I graduated from the University of Rhode Island College of Pharmacy back in '92. But while I was in pharmacy school, I worked for an independent, Oxnard Pharmacy under David Feeney, who I looked at as quite the mentor over the years, and maintained that relationship with him even through retirement. When I graduated, I worked for CVS for about 10 years. David didn't have any opportunities at the time, how limited it is for independents. And while I was working for CVS, we were in a pharmacy that had a high population of non-English speakers, a lot of Hispanics in the area. And none of us in the pharmacy could speak Spanish. So I wanted to learn the basics of Spanish to help counsel these patients, counsel them on how to use an inhaler, or just for typical communication. But there was nothing out there, and we're talking like late 90s. There was nothing out there for pharmacists. We have our own language, as everyone understands. So I said, the hell with it. I'll just kind of learn it myself, and I'll if there's nothing out there, I'll compile some kind of training program, and who knows where that takes me. So about 2 years, I bought books, I bought tapes, I had a tutor, and I learned the basics of Spanish, created this, as I was learning it, created this training program for pharmacists and techs. When I finished it, I didn't know what to do with it. It was, again, late 90s. I had no idea about marketing, no idea about sales. I was a pharmacist. We said, I'll put it on the internet. That's seems like to be a trendy thing. And so I created a little website called RXinsider, back then, put the Spanish training program on there. And I just said, all right, let me just lean back now and let all the sales just kind of roll in. Didn't happen that way.
If only it were that easy.
If only it were that easy. So, I told myself, well, let me add some tools on here to draw some pharmacists in, and they'll buy the Spanish program, and there you go. So I added some cheat sheets, like an inhaler actuation cheat sheet again. Just a number of different cheat sheets. I added like a pharmacy technician orientation and training course. And I added a little job board on there, almost like a Craigslist-y kind of job board, and it looked awful. It made Craigslist look spectacular. But at the same time, I learned a lot about search engine optimization and driving results through Google and Yahoo back then. And what happened was I had a lot of pharmacists coming in to this job board. And at the time, if anyone can remember back to like around 2000, late 90s, 2000, there was a huge pharmacist shortage. That's when all the pharmacy schools went to 6-year. With that farm degree. So it created a big issue within the market from a pharmacist shortage standpoint. And the timing was just good. So I sort of capitalized on that. And that was the start of RXinsider, really was that job board. RXinsider started as a as a recruitment marketing platform, if you will, through that job board. And that grew. And as it grew, it was still kind of a hobby job of mine. I was still working at CVS, but I slowly, paired off of CVS over the course of a couple of years as I was growing RXinsider. And then I went, full blown into RXinsider, growing that job board, and it went, really well. Grew the business, hired, more and more people, and things were, very successful. But then we wanted to diversify, a little bit or a lot, and not just be seen as a recruitment platform, but a tool for pharmacists to learn about the products and services out there that are going to help them operate their business better. So combine that with the recruiting piece and diversify the company a bit more. And that's really what RXinsider has grown into, is really a Marcom, marketing and communications company, focused on the business of pharmacy, on helping pharmacies and crossing all practice settings, not just independent community, but chain and hospital and long-term care, specialty, but crossing all practice settings, helping pharmacy managements operate their pharmacies better. And we do that through a number of different products or platforms. And we have a number of different publications. We have a number of different online tools like our virtual trade show. And we've just grown those, throughout the years. One interesting side note here is, as we were growing RXinsider back in the early 2000s, around 2005, we got wind that ACPE was coming out with a whole new set of standards for the pharmacy schools, and they were going to have some problems complying with a lot of those standards. So we built some software for the pharmacy schools back then. And if you're a preceptor out there, you're probably using our product to manage your IPPE and APPE students. It's called Core ELMS. So schools purchase that software to manage the entire experiential program for that school. It kind of runs that department, if you will. And so we started that, believe it or not, back in like 2005, kind of rebranded it to Core back in 2016, spun it off as its own company. But just another interesting tidbit about RXinsider and where we come from is we built that software that, at this point, out of 150 plus schools throughout the US and Canada, I want to say about 130 actually use that software to manage all their students. So all the pharmacy students are in it and using it, as well as preceptors. So it's just something we're very proud of here, part of our history. But that's where we've come from. And I know, Lisa, you wanted us to talk about a bit about some of the specific offerings that we have that really help pharmacists, to your point, save time. Like, time is critical, especially when you're running an independent pharmacy. Just between.
Yeah, I mean, time's important. I mean, time's the one thing you can't get back, right? Once you spent it, money, once you spent it, you can go remake it. Time, once you spend it, it's you kind of can't give it back. But I think, spending a few minutes on that history, I think, is important, because in our industry, especially in the independent pharmacy industry, but it happens in other areas too. People that are successful in other areas of business, they come into pharmacy and they think they could just take over pharmacy and they can be successful in pharmacy. And we're just such a unique, quirky little industry. And even all our little niches inside, I mean, independent pharmacy is completely different than hospital and long-term care. And, they're all so different than one another. And I think it's important that you are us, like, you are a pharmacist, you worked at an independent, you worked at a chain, like, you are us. And so I think that that's just an important perspective. You're not just some, magazine publisher that came in and be like, I'm going to publish in pharmacy, and you have absolutely no idea. So thank you for spending a few minutes on that, because I think it's just kind of important to establish your authority in this, that, you have a right to be helping pharmacies, because we are a little bit different. And then, to the point of saving time, you guys help other companies, obviously marketing and communication, like you said, Marcom. But the way that I look at it is, it's like this curated list of all these companies that can potentially help me. Of course, now I'm looking at it with the hat of an independent pharmacy owner, but any pharmacist that happens to pick it up. And I've traveled a lot this year doing some speaking. I was recently up in New York at RX's location, and do in between the tour and lunch and all that kind of stuff, I sat down, and guess what was right in front of me? The RXinsider magazine. And it's one of those things, when you start flipping through it, even somebody who's like, I talk to a ton of companies, I've been in this industry for practically my entire adult life. I still learn about new things in there, or I'm reminded of companies that maybe I kind of forgot about them. And I'm like, oh, I've been having that problem. Maybe they can solve it. And so it's this curated list. It's kind of like a yellow pages for pharmacy, if you will. Like, it has all of these amazing companies that offer some sort of service for pharmacy in some way, whether you're needing sterility testing, if you're a compounding pharmacy, or you want to learn, maybe what's the next PMS system, you need to change, and, what's another one out there. But it's kind of done all the hard work and heavy lifting. And that's why I say it's a time saver. I hear from pharmacy owners, almost every day, of, I need help, what companies are out there for this? That is a very common question that we get. And it's getting harder and harder to keep track of, frankly. There's so much growth, there's so many people leaving, there's so many people opening. And so that's how I see it, as a time saver. You can invest a little bit of time of reading your RXinsider, and you're going to gain time back, because you're going to save time by not going out there and redoing the work that you guys have basically already done. And so I just want to tell you, like, I appreciate it. Like, I thoroughly enjoy, and I greatly appreciate it. So tell us a little bit, like, about the publication. Like, if pharmacy's like, maybe I haven't seen that, Lisa, what exactly are you talking about? How would they receive it? How would they be able to look at this? What is that experience like? So that way they can know when to expect, when's the next issue, those kinds of things.
Sure, absolutely. Well, first of all, us as a company, we are exclusively focused on pharmacy. That's all we do. And to break that down, we really focus on we don't do anything clinical here. It's all the business side and operational side of pharmacy. So we don't really work with any pharma companies or manufacturers or device manufacturers. It's really all the business of pharmacy. And what we call that segment of the supply chain, we sort of stamped it, because we've never had like a distinction of these companies that support pharmacies. And we call it the Pharmacy 500. These are the 500 companies that support pharmacies across all practice settings. So everyone from Cardinal Health to DiversifyRx. You mentioned PrimeRx and Liberty Software and ScriptPro, Prod and BD. All those companies that support pharmacies, that's who we work with, and that's who we try to educate the market on them and their products. And we do it through really two of our publications. The publication number one is the Pharmacy Platinum pages. You said yellow pages earlier. I don't want to say I don't want to use the word steal, but I was influenced by the old school yellow pages, and we wanted something that was the definitive buyer's guide, again, across all practice settings for pharmacy, for those busy pharmacy managers, that when they're looking for, when they're starting the research process of perhaps a new pharmacy management system, or new POS system, or IVR system, or will call, or anything that's going to help them run their business, they turn to that publication. They go to the will call category, and there are profiles of the will call leaders in there, and then they can take it from there and do additional research. And that publication is that definitive buyer's guide for the market, and that sort of maps and pairs up to our virtual pharmacy trade show. That's great if you know what you're in need of. If I know, look, we need to upgrade our POS system. Okay, I can turn to that and find the leaders in POS. But it doesn't help you if you don't know what you don't know. Like what new is coming out? What can help my pharmacy be more profitable or improve patient care? And if I don't know what that is, how am I supposed to look for it?
Right.
And very clear. So in 2011, we said, hey, let's try to help solve that. Let's help educate these independent owners on what's new, what's coming out, what's being released, what can help them run their business better. And that's when we came out with the 20 Ways publication. And we wanted to not overdo it, like, hey, 20, like anybody can get through 20 of something pretty quick, just flip through it. And that is the goal of the publication, is to give independent pharmacy managers actually this issue comes out every 6 months, 20 unique ways to improve one of two things: profitability or patient care. And each way is a 2-page profile. And when we set up this publication, it was all around time management. So you bring up time, how critical and important that is. We didn't want to bury the lead in like a big article and force people to read through it. We wanted to be super quick. So I'm that busy pharmacy owner, publications in front of me. These profiles are actually set up with a header that says, that essentially states, how am I going to help you? Hey, pharmacy owner, this is what's in it for you by using this product. So that owner can just flip through it, bang, 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 get through all 20 in a minute. Hopefully identify one or two things that can help them and follow up in the future, or at least add it to their memory banks, just know it's out there. And what a lot of these independents do is they just keep these publications. They don't trash them. Like, I hate to say it, but when I was practicing, we would get every day 6 inches of
Yes.
mail would come in, and it's flyers and this and that, and so you just didn't have time. So much of it would just go in the garbage because you just didn't have time. It's not like it was work.
Right. You have to have some sort of priority.
Yeah, and so we actually, the way we print it, it's like super high quality. So you almost feel like you need to retain it. It's like a future resource, and a lot of pharmacists have like a little library of them stacked up.
It's like a little encyclopedia. I mean,
yeah.
Really, it is. And to your point, you guys have done a very good editorial job in the sense that it is a quick read. It's not like you're reading articles. It's not like a story. Right. It's not like, thumbing through National Geographic. It is down and dirty and the essential information you need. And you can quickly be like, yep, oh, that's a company I need to contact. Maybe the next 5, you're like, nope, don't need that. And then, oh, yep, that's one. And so it really becomes this. That's why I say, like, it is all about time management. If you don't invest in just, I don't know, 10 minutes, 15 minutes at the most to read through, maybe while you're finally sitting down to eat lunch or something, Saturday morning, whatever, it is worth that little bit of time investment, because it can dramatically change your pharmacy with being exposed to the right company, right partner, to help you solve whatever that next problem is. Whether you want to start telemedicine or, you want to start compounding or whatever the thing may be. We all have problems out there as pharmacy owners. Lately it's been a cash flow problem. And as we come out of this DIR fee apocalypse, there's always something around the corner. There's always something you want to improve in your pharmacy, and really spending time with the RXinsider. And I do like the 20 ways, like you said, it's short, it's sweet, you can consume it. And then that Pharmacy 500 is this fantastic list. And I've come through it when you guys came out with this year. Of course, it was cool that we were on there because I was like, yay. But it was cool seeing all these other companies. I was like, oh, I haven't heard of that one. And then it was like the oldies but goodies. And you just you need help as a pharmacy owner. Like, you have to have some of these companies. If you want to do RPM services or CCM services, like, you have to have a company to help you with that. And so I really appreciate that curating work that you guys have done, and the way you editorialize it, in the sense where you make it very digestible, very practical, very clear. Here's what we do, and here's what this company can do for you. And I appreciate that as a pharmacy owner. So if a pharmacy owner is sitting here thinking, I haven't seen this thing. Now, granted, their technician might be tossed in the magazine and may not even realize how important it is, but how could they go, read it? How can they make sure they're getting a copy? What are the things that they need to do? Do they need to do anything in order to do that? Because I want to make sure that it's in the hands of all of our listeners and watchers. Most of our people are in independent pharmacy, but some are in, some other practice settings. So how can they make sure they get a copy so that they can, use it and save time in the future?
Sure. Well, I think we have a pretty comprehensive list of all the independents, in the country, and it should automatically go out to them. But in the event that it doesn't, for whatever reason, they can go to RXinsider, sign up online. They can just email us. Just send a quick email you can send it to sales@rxinsider.com. Or you can send it to me, greg@rxinsider.com. Happy to add you to the list. So really simple process there.
Yeah, because I know even in several independent pharmacies, they might have multiple locations, and the owner maybe isn't always at, one particular location or something. Maybe they have an admin office. I know that's becoming very popular. And so it's not technically the pharmacy location, but, they're not there, because I don't visit my pharmacies very often. So I'm not at any of those locations. So my locations get the magazine, but I don't get it to my personal address, but I like to look at it online too. So I have it saved in my browser favorites to go check it out online. And we also signed up for your emails, and I get all your emails. So that's helpful to remember as well. But this is, so if you're listening to this as a pharmacy owner, I just highly encourage you. This is one of those kind of trade magazines, if you will, that is very worth keeping. Not just keeping for the one-time read, but as Greg mentioned, kind of building up that library. I certainly have a library behind me as well, and it's fantastic. I put little Post-it notes on the front of kind of like what piqued my interest, at that particular time, and that way it's kind of easier to find as time goes on, because frankly, we're all getting older and the brain don't work quite as well, unfortunately. But yeah, so I would definitely recommend you to invest a few minutes in this. You'll probably get an aha. You'll probably find a company, and you'll be very thankful that you did. And it can change your pharmacy. We have to take control of the things we can control. There's so much in especially in independent pharmacy, but there's so much out of our control. And so we sometimes feel hopeless. But then when you start to think of all the things you can control, you kind of take back the reins of your pharmacy and really can direct your business. So, well, that's it, Greg. I really just wanted to get people to know you, know the background of RXinsider, and be able to understand that it's this amazing resource for them. Any last words? And I just wanted to thank you for joining.
Last words are thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it. I love what you all are doing at DiversifyRx. And thank you.
Absolutely. So again, rxinsider.com. If you're not getting a copy, or you're not exactly sure about that, good on there. We'll post the emails that Greg mentioned in our notes below, so that way you can have it, and you make sure you get your copy, because that little bit of investment of time is definitely going to multiply, and you'll get a return on that in the future anyway. So thank you so much for joining. We'll see you on the next episode. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Lisa.